A billionaire watched silently as a stranger comforted his daughter. And what happened next would change all their lives forever. Jonathan Hale, a billionaire tech investor, rarely found himself in ordinary places. His life was usually filled with board meetings, investment pitches, and private jets. But today was different. Today, he wanted to spend time with his 6-year-old daughter, Mia, away from the pressures of his busy world. He wanted to be just a father, not a CEO. The neighborhood park wasn't fancy, just a small playground tucked between rows of old oak trees, but Jonathan thought it would be perfect for Mia. He hoped the fresh air, the swings, and the jungle gym would make her laugh and forget, even for a little while, that her father's world was so different from hers. Mia ran ahead the moment they reached the playground, her tiny sneakers kicking up dust, her laughter ringing through the quiet afternoon. Jonathan walked slowly behind, careful not to appear overbearing, reminding himself that part of being a good parent was letting his daughter explore on her own. He watched her climb the jungle gym with confidence, her small hands gripping the bars tightly. Every so often she'd glance back at him, her eyes sparkling, seeking approval and reassurance. He waved, smiling, and called out that she should be careful. But in the most relaxed tone he could muster, Mia was having the time of her life, swinging, sliding, and giggling uncontrollably. Jonathan felt a rare sense of calm watching her play. In the midst of his chaotic life, these were the moments he craved: the simplicity, the joy, the feeling that money couldn't buy. But in an instant, that calm shattered. As Mia climbed the top rung of the jungle gym, she lost her footing. Her foot slipped, and she tumbled backward, landing on the ground with a thud. Jonathan's heart leaped into his throat. Time seemed to slow as he rushed toward her, imagining the worst. He saw her lying on the soft grass, her small body curled slightly, her hands covering her face. Before he could reach her, a young woman nearby was already at Mia's side. She knelt down, her voice soft and reassuring, asking Mia if she was okay. She brushed the dust off Mia's dress and lifted her gently, wrapping her in a comforting hug. Jonathan stopped in his tracks. For a man who was used to controlling every situation, this was a rare moment of helplessness. He realized he didn't know how to respond. The woman introduced herself as Alina Ruiz, a waitress on her break. She didn't hesitate, didn't flinch at the sight of a crying child. She simply offered kindness and care, instinctively knowing what to do. Mia still stiffly clung to her. Jonathan had never seen his daughter respond to someone so quickly. Mia's tears were fading, replaced by a small smile. And Jonathan couldn't help but notice how natural and genuine Elena's care was. Jonathan approached them slowly, unsure if he should speak. He wanted to thank her, but the words felt inadequate for what she had done. "Thank you," he said finally, his voice steady but carrying an unusual warmth. Elena looked up, giving a small, humble smile. She waved it off, insisting she was just helping Mia now calmer. Refused to let go of Elena. She wanted a few more moments, a few more hugs, a few more kind words, before she would return to her father. Jonathan watched, both amazed and grateful, understanding in that moment that his daughter had found someone special, a person who could comfort her in ways even he sometimes could not. The park, the trees, the sounds of children playing, all of it seemed to fade for Jonathan. In that instant, all that mattered was the connection between Mia and Elena. Jonathan felt a mix of emotions: relief, admiration, and a strange sense of humility. He realized that despite all his wealth, influence, and success, he had just witnessed something priceless: genuine human kindness. For a few moments, the world outside the park, the deals, the contracts, the constant rush, didn't exist. Jonathan simply watched, appreciating the way Elena's presence had calmed Mia, the way a stranger's kindness had made a significant impact in such a short time. It was a reminder that some of the most important things in life, trust, comfort, and care, couldn't be bought or commanded. Eventually, Jonathan knelt beside them, allowing Mia to finish her hug. "She's very brave," he said to Elena, trying to match the calm, kind energy she had shown. Elena smiled again, brushing her hair back and assuring him that Mia was perfectly fine, just a little startled. Jonathan nodded, still struck by the effortless way she had taken control of a tense situation, as they walked away from the jungle gym. Mia holding Jonathan's hand? He glanced back at Alina, who returned a polite nod. Jonathan realized he had witnessed more than just a playground incident. He had seen empathy in action, a spontaneous act of care that left a lasting impression. He wondered about Alina, her life, her struggles, and what had taught her to respond with such grace in that moment. Jonathan made a quiet promise to himself. He wanted to know this woman better, not for any business reason, but because she had shown something rare in the world, a human touch that reached directly to his daughter's heart. He understood that today wasn't just about letting Mia play. It was about seeing the goodness in people, in the simplest of gestures. Jonathan held Mia's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of the afternoon sun and the soft weight of her small hand in his. He smiled, a rare, unguarded smile, knowing that this ordinary park visit had turned into a memory he would never forget. He had witnessed something extraordinary in the most ordinary of places, and he knew life had just taught him a lesson in humility, gratitude, and the quiet power of human kindness. Jonathan Hale had always been careful in his life. Every business deal, every investment, every move he made was calculated, precise, and deliberate. Yet at the playground that afternoon, he had been reminded of how little control one really has over life's unexpected moments. Watching Mia cling to Alina Ruiz had stirred something inside him, a curiosity, a sense of admiration, and, surprisingly, a longing to know this woman who had connected so effortlessly with his daughter. After Mia had finally calmed down and allowed Jonathan to take her hand, he found himself glancing back at Alina more than once. She was standing a few steps away, adjusting her uniform, her hair tied back neatly, and her expression calm yet attentive as she continued her break in the park. Jonathan realized he had no idea who she really was or what kind of life she led. Unlike the people in his usual circles, she had not asked for anything from him. She had acted out of pure kindness. Mia, however, wasn't ready to let go. Her small hand tugged at Jonathan's sleeve. "Daddy, can we see her again?" she asked, her eyes wide and hopeful. Jonathan smiled, ruffling her hair gently. He could see that this wasn't just a passing moment for Mia. Something about Alina had made her feel safe, understood, and comforted in a way Jonathan sometimes struggled to provide. He nodded. "Yes, we can. Let's go say goodbye properly." They approached Alina, and Jonathan introduced himself formally. "I'm Jonathan Hale, Mia's father. Thank you again for helping her just now." Alina smiled softly, shaking his hand lightly. "It's nothing," she said, her tone humble. "I just wanted to make sure she was okay." She didn't mention his wealth, his fame, or his achievements. She treated him as just another parent in the park. Someone who cared deeply about his child, nothing more. Jonathan felt a warmth spread through him, an unfamiliar sensation for someone who was usually guarded and measured. He realized how rare it was to meet people who didn't care about who he was or what he had. Alina's focus had been entirely on Mia, on helping her feel better, and that simplicity was almost shocking in its beauty. Mia, still holding Alina's hand, smiled shyly. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice small but sincere. Alina crouched down to Mia's level, speaking softly. "You were very brave, Mia. Sometimes we all fall, and that's okay. The important thing is to get up and try again." Mia nodded, seriously, as if she had understood some secret lesson about courage and resilience. Jonathan watched, his heart swelling with pride, not just for Mia, but for Alina, who had handled the situation with such grace. Before leaving, Jonathan asked if Alina would like to join them for a cup of coffee at a nearby cafe. At first, she hesitated, looking almost embarrassed. I shouldn't. I have to get back to work soon," she said, glancing at the small badge pinned to her uniform. Jonathan insisted, explaining that it was just a casual gesture of thanks and that Mia really wanted to spend a few more minutes with her. After a moment, Alina nodded, agreeing to come along. Over coffee, Jonathan tried to learn more about her life, asking simple, polite questions. He discovered that Alina was a waitress at a small diner in town. She worked long hours, often double shifts, to support her younger brother, who had a medical condition requiring constant care. Her story was one of quiet struggle and determination, far removed from Jonathan's own world of luxury and abundance. Yet, the hardships she faced had not hardened her heart. She was still kind, still empathetic, and still able to see the good in people. Mia listened intently, fascinated by Elena's stories of her brother, the challenges of working long shifts, and the little joys she found in life. Every so often, she would glance at Jonathan, her eyes wide with admiration for this new friend who had suddenly become so important to her. Jonathan noticed that Mia's attention and warmth were not just because Lena had helped her at the playground. They were drawn from something deeper. Lena's kindness, her resilience, and her gentle spirit had left a mark on his daughter's young heart. As they left the cafe, Jonathan offered to drive Alina back to the diner. She politely declined, saying she liked walking and it gave her a chance to clear her mind before returning to work. Jonathan watched her walk away, a mixture of curiosity and admiration stirring inside him. He found himself thinking about her life, her struggles, the quiet way she had touched his family's life in such a short time. For the rest of the day, Jonathan couldn't shake the thought of Alina. He replayed the moment at the playground. Over and over, the way she had knelt beside Mia, the warmth in her voice, the comfort in her touch. He realized that for all his wealth, his influence, and his accomplishments, he had rarely seen someone act purely out of care for another person. Lena had done that instinctively, without hesitation, without expectation. That evening, back at his penthouse, Jonathan sat with Mia, recounting the events of the day in a quiet, reflective conversation. Mia talked endlessly about Alina, how nice she was, how brave she was, and how she had made her feel safe when she had been scared. Jonathan listened, smiling, recognizing that this ordinary encounter had become extraordinary simply because of the human connection it had created. Jonathan knew that this was the beginning of something meaningful, though he didn't yet understand how. He realized that in his pursuit of success, he had often overlooked the simplest forms of kindness, the ones that didn't come with contracts, negotiations, or titles. Elena's actions had reminded him of the value of empathy, small gestures that had a bigger impact than money could ever buy. Mia eventually fell asleep that night, clutching a small leaf she had picked from the park and smiling in her dreams. Jonathan watched her, thinking about the day and the way it had unfolded. He felt a quiet gratitude, not for his wealth, but for the chance encounter that had brought Alina into their lives. He understood that some people entered your life not by coincidence, but at the exact moment they were needed. Alina had been that person for Mia, and perhaps in some unexpected way. For him to dot in the days that followed, Jonathan found himself thinking more about Alina. He wanted to know more about her, not because of what she could offer him, but because of who she was. Her courage, her compassion, and her unassuming kindness had left a mark that he could not ignore. Jonathan realized that sometimes the people we least expect to impact our lives end up teaching us the most important lessons about empathy, humanity, and the simple yet profound ways one person can change another's world. Jonathan also noticed changes in Mia. She spoke about Alina constantly, drawing pictures of their time together, telling stories about her bravery and kindness. Jonathan saw how this new friendship nurtured his daughter's emotional growth and began to reflect on the importance of surrounding Mia with people who inspired goodness. He understood that Alina was more than just a stranger who had helped at the playground. She was someone who had opened a door to a new perspective on life for both him and his daughter. By the end of that week, Jonathan decided he wanted to maintain contact with Alina, to support her quietly, and to ensure that the kindness she had shown Mia did not go unnoticed. He also realized that this was more than a simple thank. It was a chance to recognize and honor someone whose life was defined by quiet courage, selflessness, and empathy. For Jonathan, this was the start of a journey that would teach him that real value in life came not from wealth, but from connections, compassion, and the ability to touch another person's heart in ways that were lasting and genuine. Jonathan Hale couldn't stop thinking about Alina Ruiz. Her kindness and warmth had left an impression on him that went far beyond what he had expected. He had spent years building businesses, amassing wealth, and surrounding himself with influential people, yet in Alina, he saw something far more valuable, a human heart that cared deeply for others, without expectation. Over the next few days, he found himself quietly researching the small diner where she worked. He learned it was a modest place, family-owned, popular among locals, but far from the glamorous life he was accustomed to. Something about the contrast fascinated him: the hustle, resilience in her life compared to the structured perfection of his own. One sunny afternoon, he decided to bring Mia along for a visit to the diner. Under the pretext of wanting to thank Alina properly, Mia was thrilled at the idea, chattering nonstop about seeing her friend again. Jonathan smiled at her excitement, noting how much she had grown fond of Alina in such a short time. He had expected a quick visit, maybe a brief cup of coffee and a proper thank you. But as soon as they arrived, Jonathan realized this was going to be different. Alina was working a busy lunch shift. Plates clattered, orders were called out, and the smell of fried food and coffee filled the air. Yet, despite the chaos, she moved with precision and grace. Jonathan watched her handle multiple tables with ease, taking orders, delivering food, and checking in on customers, all while maintaining a smile. She laughed softly with a regular customer, scolded a young boy playfully for spilling his milk, and immediately responded to an elderly man's request without hesitation. Jonathan was struck by her ability to remain calm, patient, and kind in the middle of the storm. Mia tugged at Jonathan's hand, pointing excitedly at Alina. "Daddy, look! That's her. She's amazing." Jonathan nodded, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. He realized that Mia wasn't just impressed by the playground incident, she was fascinated by Alina's everyday heroism. Her grace under pressure, and her ability to make everyone feel valued. Jonathan felt a sense of admiration he hadn't experienced for a long time. Here was a woman who lived a life of challenges, yet managed to shine with warmth and humanity. Jonathan approached Alina when she had a brief moment to herself. "Alina, I just wanted to thank you properly. You've been incredible with Mia, and I wanted to show my appreciation." Alina paused, slightly surprised, but offered him a warm smile. "Thank you, Mr. Hale. That means a lot." She didn't make a fuss, didn't ask for anything, and didn't make him feel awkward about his status. She treated him as an ordinary person, someone who was genuinely grateful, and that simplicity was refreshing. As Jonathan and Mia sat down with Alina, she shared stories about her life. Jonathan listened intently, captivated by the honesty in her words. She spoke about her younger brother, who had a chronic medical condition. She worked double shifts at the diner to ensure he had everything he needed: medicine, doctor visits, and the small comforts that made life a little easier for him. Despite the exhaustion, she never complained, and her voice carried a quiet pride in being able to care for him. Jonathan felt a deep respect for her resilience. Mia, as always, hung on every word. She asked Alina questions about her brother, about the diner, and about how she managed to stay positive all the time. Alina answered patiently, encouraging Mia to be curious and kind. Jonathan noticed that his daughter was learning more than just factia, was absorbing lessons about empathy, responsibility, and the strength of character. Jonathan realized that these were the moments that shaped a child's heart, and he felt grateful that Alina was influencing Mia in such a meaningful way. During a lull in the shift, Jonathan observed Alina interacting with her coworkers. She offered guidance to a new waitress, helped the cook clean up a spill, and even quietly slipped $1 to a struggling delivery boy. Her actions were small, almost unnoticed, yet each one spoke volumes about her character. Jonathan was amazed at how someone so young yet so grounded could make a difference in the lives of so many people without seeking recognition. At one point, a rude customer complained about their order. Raising their voice and demanding a refund, Alina remained calm, listened carefully, and resolved the situation with tact and kindness. Jonathan could hardly believe it. He had handled negotiations with CEOs, investors, and government officials. Yet watching Alina navigate real, human emotion in such a natural way impressed him even more than any business success ever had. After her shift ended, Jonathan walked with Alina outside, offering to drive her home. She declined politely, saying she enjoyed the walk and the fresh air before heading back to care for her brother. Jonathan smiled, admiring her independence and resilience. As she walked away, he felt a mix of curiosity and admiration. He wanted to help her, to support her in some way, but he knew he had to do it without diminishing her dignity. She was proud, strong, and resourceful qualities he deeply respected. Over the next few days, Jonathan found himself thinking about Alina constantly. Her kindness, her patience, and her strength had left a lasting impression, not only on him, but on Mia as well. He noticed changes in his daughter. Mia spoke often about Alina, wanted to draw pictures for her, and asked countless questions about the diner in Elena's life. Jonathan realized that the playground incident had sparked something far bigger than a simple act of kindness. It had begun a connection that would influence both his daughter and himself profoundly. Jonathan also began to understand the challenges Alina faced daily. He knew that while she worked hard to support her brother, she also faced uncertainty in her job and financial stress. The diner was small, and any change in ownership or management could affect her livelihood. Jonathan felt a growing sense of responsibility, not just as a father who wanted to protect his daughter, but as someone who recognized an opportunity to help a remarkable person without taking away her independence. He began visiting the diner occasionally with Mia, watching Alina work and observing the way she treated everyone around her. Each visit reinforced his admiration. She laughed with the customers, comforted children who had minor accidents, and offered kind words to elderly patrons. Jonathan realized that her life was a testament to quiet courage and everyday heroism. She didn't need wealth or recognition to make a difference. Her actions alone were powerful enough to inspire him and others. Mia's attachment to Alina grew stronger with each visit. She wanted to help in small ways, bringing flowers, drawing pictures, or simply sitting and listening to Alina talk. Jonathan watched his daughter blossom under Alina's gentle influence, learning empathy, patience, and compassion. It became clear to him that this friendship was shaping Mia in ways that money or privilege never could. Jonathan also reflected on his own life. He had spent so many years chasing success, often overlooking the small, meaningful moments that truly mattered. Alina's example reminded him that true value lay not in wealth or fame, but in kindness, courage, and the ability to touch lives positively. He realized that he wanted to support Alina not as a transaction or favor, but as a recognition of her humanity and the impact she had already had on his family. By the end of this period, Jonathan knew that Alina was no ordinary person. She was someone whose life, though filled with challenges, radiated warmth, resilience, and quiet strength. He wanted to ensure that her efforts were recognized and that she had the support she deserved, not because of his wealth, but because she had earned it through the simplest yet most powerful human gestures: kindness, empathy, and courage. Jonathan began quietly planning how he could help Alina without undermining her independence. He understood that any assistance had to be thoughtful, respectful, and unobtrusive. The bond between Mia and Alina had grown, and he knew that the positive influence Alina had on his daughter's life was priceless. Jonathan realized that this was more than a simple act of gratitude. It was an opportunity to honor someone whose life, though ordinary in circumstances, was extraordinary in character. As the days passed, Jonathan watched Mia and Alina interact with increasing admiration. Mia's laughter, curiosity, and warmth around Alina were evident. Jonathan felt a deep sense of fulfillment, knowing that the playground incident had blossomed into a meaningful relationship. He also recognized that this connection had opened his eyes to a new way of seeing the world through acts of everyday kindness, through quiet resilience, and through the impact one person could have on many lives without ever seeking reward. Jonathan's respect for Alina deepened with every visit. Her ability to remain compassionate under stress, her dedication to her family, and her unassuming heroism inspired him. He understood that life often presented opportunities to make a difference, and sometimes the most valuable moments came from the smallest gestures. Alina's life was a testament to this truth, and Jonathan was determined to honor and support her in a meaningful, respectful way. Jonathan Hale had been observing Alina for weeks now, quietly learning about her world. Each visit to the diner, each shared moment with Mia, revealed more about the challenges Alina faced and the strength with which she met them. One afternoon, Jonathan and Mia stopped by the diner as usual, hoping to see Alina and spend some time together. The warm smells of coffee and baked goods greeted them, and the chatter of the regular customers filled the air. Jonathan noticed immediately that something was different. Lena looked tired, her shoulders slightly slumped, and there was a tension in her expression he hadn't seen before. He watched as she took orders, delivered plates, and smiled at customers, all with her usual grace. But between tasks, Jonathan saw brief moments when her eyes flickered with worry. When Mia ran over to her, excitedly showing a drawing she had made, Alina knelt down and smiled, but it was a forced brightness, one that didn't quite reach her eyes. Jonathan felt a pang of concern. He realized that despite her natural resilience, something heavier weighed on her that day. After Alina finished serving a table, Jonathan approached her carefully. "Alina, is everything all right?" he asked, trying not to sound intrusive. Alina hesitated, then gave a small sigh. "It's the diner," she admitted quietly. Jonathan listened intently as she explained. The owner of the diner had announced plans to sell the business. Alina worried that if the new owner didn't retain the staff, she might lose her job. Beyond the income, it was also about her brother. His medical care depended on her stability. Any disruption could have serious consequences. She tried to hide the full extent of her stress, but Jonathan could see it in the way she bit her lip, in the tension of her hands. In the occasional faraway look she gave as she wiped a table, Jonathan felt a deep empathy for her situation. He understood responsibility, but he also knew what it was like to feel trapped by circumstances beyond one's control. Alina had been carrying the weight of her family's needs, her job, and her own life with courage, but now a looming uncertainty threatened to undo all her careful planning. Jonathan realized that this wasn't just about a job, it was about her sense of security, her dignity, and her ability to care for her brother. He watched as she served another table, offering smiles and patience despite the anxiety she carried inside. Jonathan knew he wanted to help, but he also knew he had to respect her pride. Alina was independent, proud, and resourceful. Any help that appeared too direct or obvious might embarrass her or make her feel indebted. Jonathan thought carefully, considering the delicate balance between offering support and allowing her to retain her self-respect. Later that day, Jonathan returned home, but he couldn't stop thinking about Alina. He reflected on her life, the long hours at the diner, the care she provided for her brother, her tireless kindness to those around her. He realized that someone like her rarely received recognition for their efforts. In his world of wealth and influence, he often saw people using money for visibility and status. But Alina's strength came from her character, her resilience, and her willingness to help others without expectation. She didn't need recognition, but Jonathan knew she deserved it. He began to quietly research options. He looked into the diner's ownership, its financial stability, and potential risks for the staff if the sale went through. He considered how he could provide support that would make a real difference without undermining Alina's independence. Jonathan wanted to ensure that she could continue her work, support her brother, and maintain the dignity that she carried with such quiet strength. In the following days, Jonathan observed Alina's interactions even more closely. He noticed the small ways she tried to manage stress, taking brief moments to breathe, smiling at children who passed by the diner, and offering kind words to customers who were rude or impatient. Each small gesture was a testament to her endurance and her heart. Jonathan realized that her life was a constant balancing act between responsibility and compassion, and he felt a growing respect and admiration for her ability to navigate it. Mia, as always, was enthusiastic and full of questions. She wanted to know why Alina looked worried, why the diner might change, and whether Alina would still be there when they visited next. Jonathan carefully explained in simple terms, emphasizing that adults sometimes face challenges that require careful solutions, but that they would do their best to support Alina. He wanted Mia to understand resilience, empathy, and the importance of helping others without flaunting wealth or power. As Jonathan considered his options, he realized that the solution needed to be subtle. He couldn't simply hand Alina a check or announce that he would buy the diner. That would feel like charity, and it could undermine the pride that had carried her through so many challenges. He needed to find a way to secure her future, maintain her independence, and honor the dignity with which she lived her life. Jonathan also reflected on the impact Lena had on Mia. His daughter had grown emotionally, developing empathy, curiosity, and a deeper understanding of kindness through her friendship with Elena. Jonathan understood that protecting Elena's livelihood wasn't just about helping her. It was about nurturing the lessons his daughter was learning. Mia's experiences with Elena were shaping her values, and Jonathan wanted to ensure that influence continued uninterrupted. He began drafting a plan in his mind. First, he would gather more information about the diner and the potential new owners. He wanted to ensure that the staff, especially Elena, would not face abrupt changes. Next, he considered quietly providing support that would strengthen the diner's future, perhaps through investment or by facilitating resources for improvements. The key, he knew, was to act without making Elena feel indebted or uncomfortable. The solution needed to be discreet, respectful, empowering. Jonathan returned to the diner several times over the next week, observing, listening, and learning. He saw the stress on Elena's face lighten briefly. When she interacted with Mia, the bond between his daughter and Elena had become a source of joy, a reminder that human connections could offer comfort even in difficult times. Jonathan realized that sometimes the simplest acts, like spending time together, offering friendship, or listening, could have a profound impact on someone's life. He also noticed Elena's resilience in action. Despite the uncertainty, she continued to approach her work with diligence, patience, and kindness. She didn't complain, she didn't panic, and she didn't seek sympathy. She simply did what she could, every day, to care for those around her and maintain a sense of normalcy. Jonathan felt inspired and humbled. Here was a person who faced real struggles daily, yet remained a beacon of warmth and humanity. Jonathan began to understand the broader lesson of Elena's life. True strength wasn't measured by wealth, status, or recognition. It was measured by the ability to persist, to care for others, and to face challenges with dignity and grace. Elena exemplified this every day, and Jonathan felt compelled to act, not to show power, but to honor the kind of life she led. By the end of that week, Jonathan had decided on a quiet plan. He would take steps to secure the diner's future, ensuring that Elena and her co-workers would have stability and support. It would be anonymous at first, a way to protect her pride while providing real assistance. He wanted her to continue her work, care for her brother, and maintain the dignity that had defined her life. Jonathan also thought about the ripple effects. Helping Elena meant helping Mia continue to learn valuable lessons about kindness, empathy, and resilience. It meant showing his daughter that wealth could be used to empower others without diminishing their independence. And it meant honoring the extraordinary character of a woman who had touched their lives in the most human and genuine way. As he left the diner that day, Jonathan watched Elena interact with customers one last time before her break. She smiled, laughed, and offered encouragement, but he knew the worry still lingered beneath the surface. He silently promised himself that he would find a way to lighten that burden, to protect her, and to honor the quiet strength she displayed every single day. Jonathan walked away feeling determined, thoughtful, and inspired. He understood that life sometimes presented opportunities to make a difference in ways that didn't call attention to oneself. Helping Elena wasn't about showing power. It was about respecting humanity, honoring resilience, and preserving dignity. He knew that the right approach would require patience, subtlety, and careful planning. But he also knew that it was worth every effort. The bond between Mia, Jonathan, and Elena had grown stronger. And he realized that supporting Elena wasn't just an act of kindness, it was an investment in the values, lessons, and humanity that he wanted his daughter to carry forward. Jonathan's mind was set. The next steps he took would ensure that Elena's strength, kindness, and dignity would continue to thrive, quietly shaping the lives of everyone she touched. Jonathan Hale had spent weeks quietly considering how to help Elena without disrupting her independence. He had observed her life, her resilience, and the way she cared for her brother and everyone around her. The playground incident with Mia had started as a small moment, but now it had grown into something more meaningful, a chance to make a real difference in someone's life. Without taking away their dignity, Jonathan knew he needed to act, but carefully, subtly, respectfully. The following week, Alina arrived at the diner, unaware of the changes that were about to take place. The small restaurant had been struggling under the weight of financial uncertainty, and the employees, including Alina, had been anxious about the possibility of losing their jobs. When she entered the diner that morning, she immediately noticed a new energy in the place cleaner tables. Brighter lighting, and a sense of order that hadn't been there before. Yet she had no idea who had made these improvements. As the morning rush began, she moved with her usual calm determination, taking orders and serving customers. But in the back of her mind, the worry about the diner's future never completely left her. Jonathan, watching quietly from a corner table with Mia, observed Alina closely. He could see the small lines of stress around her eyes, the way her shoulders carried the weight of responsibility, and the effort it took to maintain her composure. He knew the time to act had come. Later that afternoon, the news finally reached Alina in a way she could understand. The diner's ownership had officially changed hands. But instead of the chaos and uncertainty she had feared, everything had been carefully arranged to ensure stability for the employees. The new owner had decided to retain the staff, increase wages slightly, and even invest in small renovations to improve the diner's environment. Additionally, a scholarship fund had been set up to help employees pursue education or training opportunities. Alina was stunned. She had not expected any of this, and the relief she felt was overwhelming. She looked around the diner, noticing the subtle improvements in the organized systems, and finally allowed herself to breathe. For the first time in weeks, she felt hope instead of anxiety. The weight she had carried alone suddenly felt lighter, and she realized that someone had gone to great lengths to ensure that she and her colleagues were secure. Jonathan had arranged for all of this to happen without revealing his involvement immediately. He wanted Alina to feel the support without any sense of obligation or embarrassment. As he watched her reaction, he felt a quiet satisfaction, knowing that he had achieved exactly what he intended: to help, to protect, and to honor her dignity. Mia, sitting beside him, whispered, "Daddy, did you fix it for Alina?" Jonathan smiled softly but said nothing, letting the moment unfold naturally. Later, the diner had quieted down after the lunch rush. Alina sat outside on a bench for a short break. She noticed Jonathan approaching, Mia holding his hand. Her expression was a mix of curiosity and gratitude, though she had not yet learned who had orchestrated the changes. Jonathan sat down beside her, gently asking how her day had been. Alina smiled faintly, still trying to process everything. Mia, eager to share her excitement, blurted out, "Daddy fixed your restaurant so you won't be sad anymore?" Alina laughed softly, a mixture of surprise and disbelief in her eyes. She turned to Jonathan, realizing for the first time that he had been behind all the changes. Her initial reaction was stunned silence. Then, slowly, a mixture of gratitude and emotion spread across her face. She struggled to find words, feeling overwhelmed by the generosity and thoughtfulness behind the act. Jonathan spoke quietly. "I just wanted to help. You've shown kindness to my daughter and to us in ways that can't be measured with money. I wanted to make sure you had support without losing your pride." Lena's eyes welled up with tears as she absorbed his words. She had lived a life of struggle, carrying responsibilities and facing challenges daily, and now she was confronted with an act of pure generosity, done without expectation, without obligation, and without seeking recognition. The three of them sat together in the soft afternoon sun. Mia excitedly sharing stories and drawings she had made for Alina. Jonathan watched the bond between his daughter and Alina grow stronger. Realizing that this moment symbolized more than just financial security or a stable job, it represented trust, gratitude, and the profound impact of human kindness. Alina had touched their lives in a way that went beyond a simple act. She had inspired, comforted, and nurtured the emotional growth of a child. Over the next few days, the diner flourished under the new arrangements. Employees, including Alina, felt a renewed sense of stability and motivation. The small renovations and improved systems made daily work easier and more efficient. Alina noticed subtle improvements she hadn't expected, like better equipment, improved schedules, and an overall sense of respect for the staff. Yet she still carried herself with humility. Never assuming that these changes were handed to her out of charity, Jonathan continued to visit occasionally, not to remind her of his role, but simply to see the positive impact on Alina and Mia. He marveled at the way she continued to care for others, never letting her own relief overshadow the responsibility she felt toward her family and community. Her humility, her perseverance, and her ability to remain kind and compassionate under pressure continued to inspire him. Mia, of course, continued to adore Alina. She wanted to help in small ways, bringing flowers to the diner, making drawings, or simply sitting with her during breaks. Jonathan noticed that his daughter had learned invaluable lessons about empathy, resilience, and generosity from Alina. These lessons were shaping her character in ways that no school, book, or luxury could provide. Alina, eventually, found the courage to confront Jonathan. She sought him out at the park one afternoon, curious and emotional. "I don't even know how to thank you," she said softly. "This is more than I could have imagined. You've changed my life, and I don't even know how to express it." Jonathan smiled warmly. "You don't have to thank me," he replied. "You've already given so much to my daughter, to your brother, to everyone around you. I simply wanted to make sure you had the support you deserved." The moment was quiet, profound, and filled with a sense of understanding. Alina realized that this wasn't about wealth, power, or influence. It was about recognizing character, kindness, and the quiet heroism that went unnoticed by most. Jonathan, in turn, realized that the most important investments in life weren't financial. They were emotional, human, and deeply personal. From that day forward, Alina continued her work at the diner with renewed confidence and hope. Jonathan and Mia maintained their friendship with her, forming a bond built on trust, respect, and mutual admiration. Mia thrived under Alina's guidance and example, growing more empathetic, patient, and understanding every day. Jonathan reflected on how a single act of kindness at the playground had grown into a lasting, transformative connection, one that reshaped the lives of all three of them in profound and meaningful ways. In the end, Jonathan understood a fundamental truth. Wealth could build businesses, but kindness built legacies. Alina's life, marked by quiet courage, empathy, and perseverance, had inspired him to see the world differently. He had learned that true value wasn't measured by money or success. It was measured by the impact one person could have on another's heart. And in that shared understanding, a billionaire, a waitress, and a young girl discovered that the simplest gestures could change lives forever. The story closed with the three of them in the park once again. Mia ran to the swings, laughter spilling from her lips. Alina watched with a smile, her heart lightened by the security and kindness she had received. Jonathan sat on a nearby bench, quietly observing, feeling the warmth of the sun and the quiet satisfaction of having done something that truly mattered. In that moment, he understood that the richest moments in life were not found in wealth or possessions, but in love, gratitude, and human connection.